Welcome back to the Canyon Heights podcast. Today I am visiting with Brother Paul Richter. Paul, how are you? This is where you can.
I'm good. Thank you.
So, as you know, because you said you were prepping for this, I like to start in the beginning. So tell me about your childhood, about like some of your earliest memories.
Yeah. So I think probably the first things that register with me are probably when I was in preschool and my dad would take me to preschool. He taught high school at Manzano. And so they had like a preschool at the high school. So I would ride with him every day in his old white Saab. I don't know what year it was from. It was kind of a funky car. So yeah, that's kind of what stands out to me. It was like getting to ride with dad to high school, even though I was only 4 years old. It felt like I was kind of cool getting to go to high school.
Yeah.
So
You said he was a teacher?
Yes.
Which subject?
So he taught the NJROTC program. He actually started it up. That was like in 1980. So he did that for 21 years at Manzano.
So he started it at that school, right?
Yes. Yes.
It was already in place nationally. He just started it there. Cool. I guess the N would be national. I'd never heard of the NJROTC.
So it's actually naval, and so I think it would be like AFJROTC if you were affiliated with the Air Force. So my dad had been in the Navy also. He did 20 years of active duty in the Navy when he retired from active duty, moved over into teaching.
Okay. Where did he go when he was active duty?
Oh gosh, a lot of different places. He was did a couple tours in Vietnam. I know Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, the Philippines. I think shortly before he retired, he had some sort of a work trip to London. That was right after I was born. I know he had made it to like Barcelona, Naples, Italy. So a lot of really, really cool places throughout his career. Yeah.
What was his office there, or his level?
So he got to commander. That was his rank.
Forgive me. So is commander, that's near the top, or is it at the top?
Not at the top, and I won't claim that I know all the ranks. I think admiral is kind of the top. So I think commander's pretty up there.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. And so tell me about your mom then.
Yeah. So mom was she was a stay-at-home mom, which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah. Mine was too.
That was yeah. So she was super supportive. It was pretty nice. Some of my friends have both parents working, so having a mom that was there and can take you to whatever sports practice, music lessons, things like that was awesome.
Yes. It is definitely a full-time job.
For sure.
So you took music?
Yes. I started with piano lessons when I was in kindergarten. Pretty sure it was kindergarten. Um, I did piano lessons all the way through high school. But in sixth grade, I started the trombone. I signed up when you started middle school, you had to pick your elective. So I chose band. and, and yeah.
That's what I chose as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I started with the clarinet.
Okay. Cool.
It wasn't. I hadn't really heard of the clarinet, but they said that it was like the second easiest to learn, so we went with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I was originally thinking I wanted to play the bassoon, but I think that's a pretty unusual instrument for someone in sixth grade to try out. And funny enough, my dad had actually played trombone back when he was in I think middle school, high school, and maybe into college a little
yeah,
bit. So he was excited that I picked the trombone.
and that's the long uh, brass.
Yes, with the slide.
Yeah, slide.
No.
And the bassinet, is that a wind?
So yeah, are you talking bassoon or
Oh,
like
right. Sorry,
bassoon?
bassoon.
Yeah, yeah. It's considered a woodwind instrument, and it's got the double reed instead of just like the regular single reed like
Yeah.
clarinet and saxophone. So I think it's probably kind of hard to play.
Yeah. And so you never attempted that.
No, no. I don't even know if the school had one, like, because
Yeah.
when you first start, you're having to borrow a school instrument usually, so they may not have even had one.
Probably the only double reed was the oboe.
Yeah, yeah, no.
Cool. You also mentioned sports.
Yeah. Um, I tried a little bit of like several different sports. So I did like 1 year of soccer. I was in like first or second grade. No, I wasn't very good at that. And then I tried 1 year of Little League Baseball. I think that was second grade. And it was still the pitching machine. It wasn't a live pitcher or anything. And sort of my dubious claim to fame is that my coach would just have me go bunt every time, not even swing away. But it was actually a pretty good strategy because when you're that age, no one can like catch a pop up or field a ground ball cleanly. So it was a pretty good way to get on base every time.
Yeah.
Um, and then probably I think second or third grade, I started basketball, and that was the only sport I was mildly good at. Though my basketball career ended, I tried out in high school and I did not make the team, so that was the end of my sports career.
Yeah, I did soccer in
Got
elementary school and middle school. Um, I don't think I was ever very good at it. There was one year where I made a goal, and maybe two
Nice.
that year.
Yeah,
So that was
I'm sure that's better than me. I don't think I got any in my season.
so. And I did 1 year of baseball. Really hated
Got it.
that. I didn't like a ball coming at me, so sports
Yeah,
in
yeah,
general
exactly.
wasn't great for me. But
Yeah, yeah.
so when you were doing the softball or baseball, you said it was a machine that spit out the
Pitching
balls.
machine.
So
Hmm.
is that the way it was during games as well, or did you not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It was during the games. It was actually that thing, as I remember, and it's kind of a faint memory. It was
Okay.
pretty accurate. It wasn't like you were going to get hit by it ever. So then, like in practice, our coaches would actually throw it, and that was a little scary. I think I think both of our coaches were left-handed, and so as a right-handed batter, that ball's kind of like coming at you, and it was kind of scary. So I actually preferred the machine to a real person throwing the ball.
I think um, I think we're all about to figure out that preference soon with machine versus human. To
Yeah.
skip
Yes.
skip many years into the future.
Right. Right. Yes.
It's
Indeed.
it's fascinating. AI. I just it's fascinating, and it's scary too, and it's
Yeah.
fascinating. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
any thoughts on AI
No, that's
generally?
funny that you asked that. Yeah, I've been kind of trying to learn more, um, or just to understand more, yeah, generally I'm pretty apprehensive. At my job, they're not like encouraging us to use it, but they've made the Microsoft Copilot available, and I know a few people that use it from time to time to spit out reports and whatever. And yeah, I don't know. I'm wary of it.
Yeah. Um, Wary of it replacing you, wary of it security risks, all the above, probably. Really.
Yeah, I think what makes me nervous. Um, we've seen so many technological advances in our life, and of late, so many of them are things that make life much easier. And I think at least the demos that I've seen, it's like AI would do a Google search for you, and I'm still like I can do that on my own. I can make that effort. So like it feels like it's gonna move us towards doing less for ourselves, and that's
Yes.
that's scary to me.
Yeah, I agree. It, yeah. I in When I was in middle school, I was in the spelling bee multiple
Okay.
years, and I think I'm still a pretty good speller, but I'm not nearly since word check or spell
Right.
check
Right.
in Microsoft
Hmm.
Word. It just it's so easy to just do that, and it
Hmm.
auto
Hmm.
corrects even. So you don't even
Yeah.
know it did it in some cases. So,
Yes.
and
Yes.
this is definitely that on steroids.
Hmm.
So the latest, the Chat GPT 4.0, when they demonstrated that, and they were just like, hey, I'm talking to my friend. I'm speaking English. He's speaking Chinese. When I speak English, speak Chinese. And then when he speaks Chinese, speak English in real time. And it just does it. And so,
Yeah.
like, what is the point almost of learning a language? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
there is a point. There is a very good point, but
Yes.
it's yeah, it's interesting. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. We'll see how it evolves. I'm trying to understand, what are the good points, because I think there are probably a lot of things that it can be helpful, but
yeah,
we'll see. We're gonna find out, I guess.
yeah. Okay, going back in time now.
Hmm.
Um, so tell me about high school.
Yeah. So I was probably mostly music was the majority of my like non my extracurricular activity. I did like the marching band. That was somewhat begrudgingly, but I really liked jazz band and concert band. So that was a big part of my high school experience, and it certainly takes up. I don't know if it would be as much as like being on a sports team, but it's like year round. It's not seasonal at all, and so it takes up a lot of your time.
Well, in marching band, that's always 0 hour, right?
Yes, yes, indeed.
Um, how big was your school?
So I went to El Dorado, and I think we were probably, I would guess, close to 2,000 students, maybe a little bit under at
Um,
that time.
but like how many people were in the marching band, and like what did you have a good sized performing arts center? I went to Rio Rancho, and it was the
Okay.
school that Intel built, literally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we had the performing arts center, and we also had this huge field out to the side where the marching band did their thing, and like this huge like tower for the conductor to be on,
Mm-hmm.
that always
Mm-hmm.
made me think of King Benjamin in the Book of Mormon. So was
Yeah,
it like
yeah.
that for you?
Yeah, yeah. So I remember going to Rio Rancho High School the year it opened, and yeah, it was really nice. So kind of going to the first question, I'm kind of estimating, but over the 4 years, we would normally be like I think about 120 to 130, and that includes the I don't know if you'd call it the like drill team or dance team, the flag team. So they just do the artistry, the dancing. So I think at least probably 100 instrumentalists on the field. Um, so yeah, our performing arts center was older than than what you guys had at Rio Rancho, and we had kind of an old paved um, like a paved lot that was in the very back of the campus, kind of like behind the softball field and whatever. But that's where we had to practice every morning at 6:45, as you mentioned, 0 hour.
I hated it. Well, so I wasn't in band when I got to high school. My
Okay.
heart had deteriorated to the point where I couldn't do that. I ended up
Okay.
having open heart at the uh, a couple months into ninth
Mhm.
grade. Um,
Wow.
so I actually had the blessing of I didn't have to take any final exams for my first time to take final exams in high school. I didn't have to do any of that. So I had homework, but I didn't
Okay.
have the finals. Yeah. I mean,
Do they just default you to an A, or how does that work?
no, I mean, so they do give you homework, and you're graded on the
Okay.
homework. You just,
Okay.
I don't know, they just don't have the final exam being a thing that's calculated as part of the grade.
Okay.
At least
That makes sense.
that's what it seemed like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But so, and mainly it was, I remember reading a lot, you know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which, I had plenty of time for after the surgery. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, anyway, so I joined choir in high school and
Cool.
absolutely loved it. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
so much
Mm-hmm.
better. Um, and yeah, so I missed out on the 0 hour, but it, my my little brother, our younger brother David, He was in the ward for a bit. He was in orchestra, and so there
Okay.
was a semester or two where I went to 0 hour seminary. So seminary
Oh yeah.
before 0 hour, and that's where I get the I hate 0 hour from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you graduate from high school. What does Paul's life look like after that? College, I
Um,
or
what's that?
college, work. Um,
College. Yeah. Um, I had all the grand plans that I was going to go, far away. Albuquerque's boring. I stayed at UNM, and I did actually was pretty involved. I did not get my degree in music. I got my degree in history, but I stayed really involved with music. I did 2 years of marching band in college, and it's actually more fun in college because it's you're just there for entertainment at the football games. It's not competitions and stuff.
hmm.
It's less rigorous rehearsals. So anyway, yeah, but I did a minor in music and a major in history.
um, what what era of history or uh, like American world, which kind of
I did a little of everything. You could basically just do like a general history degree, and I mean, I kind of took a little of everything, honestly. Like some of I know I had a class that was like the age of Washington and Jefferson. I took a couple history of like Japan, 20th century China. Trying to remember what else, but it was a good variety, and um, I kind of just stumbled into it. I enjoyed doing research. I enjoyed like the reading and doing the research. And then actually, I've always enjoyed writing quite a bit. So whether it's technical or creative, I haven't really done much creative writing in my life, but like the technical writing, I really actually enjoyed that. So the history degree is a good fit for that.
um, haven't done too much technical writing,
Hmm.
but I remember my teacher saying that I would be very good at it if I ever chose it, because I think it was in eighth grade they had that assignment to do a technical writing thing on making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I was the kid who was like, you have to take out the knives, then you have to hold the knife, then you have to, insert the knife and just, and there's steps in between that, clearly. But
Sure.
I was
Yes.
OCD made you very detailed. So, but um, yeah, so that's cool. Um, so tell me about um, social life growing up.
Um, I'm I've always been fairly introverted. Gotten I think there's the term ambivert. I think I've become more of that as I've gotten older, but I was pretty reserved and kind of nose to the grindstone with studying and between band or like music, being in different ensembles,
Right.
and studying. I got I didn't really figure out that I wanted to major in history until about halfway through. And then I decided I want to be done in 4 years. So those last 2 years, especially, was just a lot of time in the library.
Yeah.
Um, and
What
yeah, so I didn't have a whole lot of a social life.
what what was it that change that sent you down the history road?
I actually thought I wanted to be a biology major when I went in. I thought maybe even doing something, and maybe not necessarily a doctor, but whether it was like a research type role. And I took my first semester, I took biology 101, and I'm pretty sure I got a C in that. And the class was like really boring. I didn't like it at all. Um, and so I kind of started exploring everything. And like I said, I think I enjoyed, I'm very interested in just all the different cultures of the world. I enjoyed the reading that was usually, which is surprising because I'm not that much of a reader, but when it came to like learning about the stuff that happened 150 years ago, 300 years ago, there was something really
Yeah.
cool about that. And then I would say also just the fact that I felt pretty comfortable being able to write. There's a lot of, not only your tests are writing based, but you have a lot of
Right.
papers to do. And I like that.
Okay. Cool. So tell me about your faith. I know you have
Yeah.
a
So
tradition. What is it? Exactly.
yeah. So it's been sort of like, I'll probably be the first guest on the podcast who's got a pretty different sort of background in that.
Yeah, and I really want to explore that. I've been really
Sure,
looking forward to talking with you. Um,
sure. Yeah. So growing up, my parents took us to I believe it's called Congregationalist. It's actually a church right by UNM, and so we went as a family to that. Very regularly attending through about sixth grade. My parents were even like Sunday school teachers, so I learned a lot about the probably your more quote famous Bible stories and things like that. And then we stopped going. I know that church was probably pretty liberal minded socially, and I think they started to move even more that direction. And my parents weren't super comfortable with that.
okay.
Um, and so yeah, we really stopped going when I was in middle school. Um, my dad had always wanted to go back, but I don't think it meant as much to her. Um,
So
so yeah, I kind of was wandering
you,
and not
so you didn't switch to something else. You just stopped.
just stopped. Yeah, just stopped. Um, and then I was probably so after I was in a hurry to finish up college in 4 years, I took a couple of years off between my undergraduate and my graduate degree, and in advance of doing a master's degree, I went back and audited a couple classes at UNM, and I made really good friends with a with a girl in this music class that I was taking, and she invited me um, to get involved with like an inter like an inter I shouldn't say interfaith, but a group called InterVarsity. It's like a campus ministry at UNM, and so that kind of for a while brought me back into it and got me into doing Bible study and getting that fellowship. Um, and so I did that for probably a year or two. That got me going back into church attendance.
How did that compare, like in doctrine, the varsity
InterVarsity. Um,
congregational?
I wish I could remember more specifics. I think it probably focused more on like New Testament study. There was a lot of more. I think even in those meetings, those weekly meetings, even though it wasn't like it was a church service, there would be a lot of the more modern kind of like they would sing some of that worship music.
Okay.
Again, kind of like the rock band style.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like that.
Okay.
That was kind of what I recall of it. So yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Continue.
Yeah. No, I did. So I ended up moving to Kansas City for graduate school,
Okay.
and I stayed on. I had very few social connections there, so I went to a church for about a year there, and it was again kind of like modern praise music and um, Bible study that I think was more like New Testament focused. And the one that I went to, I remember going to a meeting, and this will sound really odd, but I went to a meeting and the pastor, this was really out of nowhere, started like speaking in tongues.
Okay.
Um, and that kind of like after that, I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. This is really strange, and I stopped going. And that aspect, that spiritual aspect of my life, went away really until I met Anne.
Okay.
So yeah.
What? Tell me about Anne.
Yeah. Um, so we actually met through, we worked together. Um, I was still in
Where?
Kansas City.
Where,
Go ahead.
where do you work? I should have asked.
So yeah. So I currently work for Bank of Albuquerque,
Okay.
which is it's based out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. They kind of brand the bank names in each market, so it's
Okay.
sounds more familiar for people. They see Bank of Albuquerque, and that makes them happy. So yeah, I work for Bank of Albuquerque.
I I sort of interned at a Cumulus Media for a
Hmm.
very short span of time, and the point was to have me produce radio commercials, and
Okay,
we did very few of them, but one of them was for Bank of Albuquerque, and it
okay,
was just the deep voice at the beginning and the end. Bank of
nice.
Albuquerque. So
Hmm.
that's
You should pass along. I don't. Did you save any of your work or?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'd be interested to hear that. Yeah.
It's Gregory Gene Conrad.com, and then you
Okay.
click voiceover and then audio reels. So
Okay. Cool.
yeah,
Very cool.
so that's my connection to Bank of Albuquerque.
To banking. Yes.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So I work at Bank of Albuquerque, and funny enough, that's where our new bishop, Sean Walker. We don't work in the same division, but we work in the same office.
Ah,
So yeah, it was kind of when Ann and I first moved into the ward. Um, Sean and Bishop Walker and his wife Jackie were kind of randomly there at a sacrament meeting, and I messed up. I had only been working at Bank of Albuquerque for 2 or 3 months, and I was like, "This guy looks really familiar." Like, what's his name again? Because you meet a lot of people when you switch jobs, and it's hard to keep track of. But
yeah.
it was one of those kind of whether you want to call it signs from the universe or things that I've seen in my life where um, kind of talking about spiritual
Right.
aspects, kind of these
Yeah.
coincidences you see. So yeah. So I guess sorry, I was talking about Anne, how I met Anne, I guess, right? Um, so the bank that I previously worked at um, was buying. I was still in Kansas City. I lived there for about 15 years,
Okay.
and the bank that I worked for was buying a bank here in New Mexico, and I ended up moving back here as a result of that. But yeah, I first met Anne because we work in the same. We're both in the commercial lending underwriting side of the bank, and so
So she was
she was on a
Bank
team
of
that
Albuquerque as well then?
No, this is it's called Enterprise Bank and Trust.
Okay.
So yeah. So anyway, I got to part of my responsibility as we merged with their bank was to like help bring their group on board and learn, how do we do things at Enterprise Bank. And so yeah, we worked really closely together. Um, and I could just always tell like she was someone that was extremely hardworking, um, very kind, um, and just there's something different about her from most people that you meet.
Right.
Um, and so we worked together for probably two years or so before we really started to talk as friends outside of work. She was someone, again, I saw her as being like different. Um, and I was going through some difficulties in my life, and she was someone that I just said, "Hey, can I ever talk to you outside of work, just as friend to friend?" Um, and she was very willing to do that, and so we were friends for a while outside of work before we even really started dating. And once we started dating, that's when she invited me to come along with her to church, and you know it, I knew it was a big part of her life, and so I was obviously interested to learn more about it.
What was your perception of the church before you attended, and how did that shift once you
Um,
going with Anne?
yeah, it was generally positive. I just have one older brother, and I remember he's like 5 years older than me. So one of his best friends, probably when he was in like middle school, was a member of the church, and he was a really fun guy. Very very nice to me always. I knew it was kind of like he has six brothers and sisters or something like that.
Yeah.
And I knew quite a few church members throughout the years, like growing up in school, and they were always super nice, had a good sense of humor, um, really high quality people. Um, but yeah, there's kind of a perception that, oh, this church is way way different. So I think I was certainly aware that people go on a mission, and to me it was always like, I don't know how people could do that. They're away from their family for 2 years. They maybe have to go learn a foreign language. Like, how amazing is that? Like, I really I've always respected that. Um, I don't know how I would have handled that when I was 18 or 19 years old. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't go
You did.
because health, but my brothers did, and my dad did when he was, young.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
my younger brother David. He went to the Netherlands and learned Dutch. Uh,
Cool. Yeah.
my older brother William, he went to Sweden and learned Swedish. He just moved into the Canyon Heights ward. Um,
Oh, cool. Okay.
yeah, uh, my parents and he decided. My parents had wanted to move for a long time, and so the decision was mom and dad moved to Harris, and William moved from Seattle into their house in
Oh,
Albuquerque.
cool. Okay.
So
That works well.
Um, say hi to my brother when you see him.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you said William, your brother's William.
William.
He's
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
and Tabitha and Madison and Alex.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you'll forget that.
Okay. I'll try my best.
um, I shouldn't say that. I don't know what your memory's like.
It's bad. I'm bad with names. I'm admittedly, I wish I were better at it.
um, Good peoples.
Yes, yes.
um,
I was going to tag on, just still kind of finishing up answering the question about
right,
like what my impressions of the church was, that it was so different.
right,
And it's probably, obviously it's different from what my experience has been throughout my life, but um, yeah, it's been, my impression is obviously really positive. I'm always amazed at like um, how sincere and welcoming everyone is, and they, the phrase "practice what you preach." I don't think anyone really. I wouldn't want to say that anyone preaches at you. I think quite the opposite. But they live, um, I think, very consistently with what you learn about in the Bible, what you learn about Christ. And so I think that's what I'm struck by. And then I'm also really blown away by the like all volunteer, the callings, and how much of everyone's time that people give, and like that's how the church runs, and that's really cool.
right. What does Anne? What's her calling?
So she's the Young Women's president.
Oh yeah, that's a load.
Mm-hmm. She had done it in before she moved to Albuquerque, I think at the ward and the stake level. So she really enjoys it. I know it's like kind of her favorite. So
Yeah. Um, cool. So y- you're not a member, um, uh, and I I want to ask this right, and but so today's world is full of contention and disunity, right? And so, and one of the biggest, I don't know, sayings, phrases out there when it comes to contention and stuff is, if you don't want to be contentious, don't talk about religion or politics. Um, so how have you made that work with Anne? Because I mean, you're similar, but you're also very different. Um,
yeah, yeah. No, I think we had a good conversation early on when we were like dating, that she just said, "Hey, look, this is a really important part of my life. Um, I don't." She This is her saying to me, "I don't expect that you are going to join the church necessarily, but I'd love it if you would at least come with me." Um, and I think that's really the extent of what she said. When you talk to her, you'll have to double check my memory on that. But
yeah,
um, but again, I have so much respect for the way she lives her life, that I view it as, this is definitely worthwhile for me to learn about and participate. And we'll see where my heart goes in the future, certainly. Because like I've had a weird, stop and start experience with spirituality in my life. So I'm trying to kind of like just go slowly and learn. And I did read through the Book of Mormon once to understand more of what that's all about. And so for now, it's kind of like just participate and certainly support Anne,
right.
because it's, yeah, I know it's important to her, and um, I can understand why.
Okay.
It's a good foundation to have, obviously.
It
So
really is. It
yeah,
really
yeah.
helps. It's it's what keeps me going.
Hmm.
With
Hmm.
my OCD, and I've dealt with like suicide stuff, and that's where I get the strength. I get
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
my relationship with Christ, and really my relationship with those around me. Because
Yes.
when mental health is really bad, it's sometimes it's very difficult to just get a straight connection with God, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why I really lean on others, and um, it's a really good foundation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'll even throw in that I went on trek with Anne with her former
yeah,
with the Santa Fe steak back in. We joked that it was our honeymoon. We got married in April of 22, and we went on trek in June. We did get to go on a real honeymoon. Not the trek doesn't count, but so I did that, and it was. I mentioned that just because I was kind of talking about like young people going to serve on a mission, seeing all these kids on trek, and here I was, like trying to sleep in a tent and not really sleeping and just kind of grumbling to Anne like, this is so hard, this is terrible, and all the kids are just laughing and having a great time every day when they're pulling the hand carts. And I was like, wow, it's pretty cool. Like I just say that because I'm impressed that
yeah,
you know young people in the church have that foundation, and you can see it, like that they're living it out.
yeah, yeah. That was a big part of my young manhood. um, was scouting, and
Mhm.
just and even now it's a different program, but we definitely teach our youth to camp and
Mhm. Mhm.
be outdoors, and I hate camping because the
Me too.
OC and things, but um, it really is a good thing.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
builds character. So
There's no AI in the woods.
not yet, not yet.
Not yet.
There's drones,
Yeah, yeah.
and so for fun, I hike around the foothills with the dog, and
Mhm.
at least I did before mom and dad moved.
Yeah.
And now we do it over there, but I
Mhm.
map out the trails. I have an app that records where I walk, and still I'm just like, this thing isn't very accurate.
Yeah, yeah,
It's pretty darn accurate when you think about it, especially when you're way the heck out there. It still
yeah,
keeps track of you. Um,
yeah.
but for me, like, I would love the augmented reality thing of being able to go on a hike and see the path for
Hmm.
me. Um,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah. Um, um, Before I ask our last question, is there any uh, part of your life that we haven't covered that's important that you would like to share?
Mm, you know, I would just say so. I'll just kind of share that. Like I lost my mom and dad have both passed away. My dad passed away about a year ago, and I'll say that's part of what keeps me struggling in a lot of ways spiritually, just kind of figuring my way out through that. Um, but I do appreciate like that I was blessed to have two really good parents, and they lived pretty long full lives,
Yeah.
and did so much for me. So yeah. So I think it's something that I'm, as we talked about me not being a member, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I'm still kind of like wrestling with. Um, but I do appreciate, I've seen the way that God acts, influences and helps you throughout life. And I certainly am grateful for them. And
Yeah.
while I miss them a lot, I know I was lucky to have them as long as I did.
Yeah. Yeah. All my grandparents are gone now, and so
Yeah.
I sort of understand that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be a lot harder when mom and dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which won't happen for a very, very long time.
Of course not. Right. Right.
But yeah, I appreciate it, how hard it is to just on holidays, or even just not holidays, just my dad will just sometimes be like, I miss talking to my mom, and mom as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. All right.
Okay.
Last question. Uh, if you could send one message 100 years into the future for your posterity to hear, what would it be?
So I mentioned that I studied, so I was ready for this, but it's still hard. Um, this is a tough one.
Well, usually people don't prepare for this. It's great that you did.
I, I would have been stumped, so I needed to prepare. But
Yeah.
um, I think mine would be um, the just to be a be a person that others can rely upon. Like be a reliable person and help others. Um, and always give a sincere effort. And I think as long as you do those things, things will mostly turn out right. You'll still have struggles, but I think if you kind of focus in on those three things, things will things will work out. Things will work themselves out.
Amen. Paul, it's just a thrill to talk with you.
Oh, thank you.
So, um, that's it for this episode of the Canyon Heights Ward podcast. Hopefully, next time we'll be meeting with your wife. Though, as you mentioned, we recently had a big change in leadership, so I need to call the new bishop and get him on. So
Yes. Yes.
he may be on first. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Gregory.
All right.